The contract is gone. Effective immediately. The words echoed in Charles's mind as he stood frozen, watching years of power slip away in a single breath. Around him, the boardroom smirked, predators savoring blood. But then came the moment no one expected. A notebook, a girl, and a secret that could flip everything upside down. This isn't just the downfall of a billionaire. It's the rise of someone the world refused to see. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. The world had always bowed before Charles Whitmore. His name was whispered in boardrooms, his signature sealed billion-dollar contracts, and his empire stretched across continents. To the outside world, he was untouchable, a man who controlled markets and silenced rivals with a phone call. But beneath the glittering towers and polished marble floors, cracks were beginning to show. For weeks, whispers circled in the financial district. Whitmore's latest project, a mega deal with foreign investors, was on shaky ground. His competitors watched like vultures circling the sky. And behind the curtains, deals were collapsing one by one. The empire he had built seemed suddenly fragile. Charles wasn't the type to beg, but desperation had begun to etch itself into his face. He had lost something more than money. He had lost trust. One signature pulled back, one contract revoked, and with each domino falling, his empire trembled closer to ruin. On a cold morning, he walked through the lobby of his headquarters, a man still dressed in wealth but carrying the shadow of defeat. Employees watched him closely, whispering when they thought he couldn't hear. They saw a titan stumbling, and in that silence, he felt the cruel truth. Power wasn't permanent. Among those working silently in the background was Samuel, the janitor. Day after day, Samuel swept floors that shone brighter than his paycheck, invisible in the world of executives. Few ever noticed him except his daughter, Alina, who sometimes waited after school, carrying her books while her father finished late shifts. What Charles didn't know was that this girl, ignored by everyone in the tower, held the very piece of knowledge that could change everything. But for now, the billionaire remained blind, standing at the edge of his empire's collapse. The fall didn't happen overnight. It came in waves. First, the European investors withdrew, citing uncertainty. Then came the lawsuit, a whisper campaign that claimed Whitmore's company exploited minority workers abroad. Rumors spread like wildfire, and suddenly Charles found himself painted not as a titan, but as a villain. Behind closed doors, old allies turned their backs. The newspapers plastered his face under headlines dripping with schadenfreude. Whitmore Empire crumbles. His rivals smirked in silence, waiting for the final blow. Charles fought back with lawyers, advisors, and desperate phone calls. But every door slammed shut. His fortune couldn't buy loyalty when the world smelled blood. And then came the day when he lost it all. An emergency board meeting where his closest partners voted against him. Overnight, the man who once controlled empires stood powerless. Humiliation was a slow poison. On his way out of the glass tower, Charles saw the eyes of his employees, half pity, half contempt. He hated that gaze more than any headline. It was in that fragile moment that Samuel's daughter crossed his path. Alina, just 17, her hands clutching a notebook full of sketches and equations. She wasn't supposed to be in those marble halls, but she stepped forward, her gaze steady. "You don't have to lose everything," she said quietly, almost a whisper drowned by the noise of the lobby. Charles barely registered her words. A janitor's daughter? What could she possibly know about million-dollar contracts? Yet something in her tone carried weight. Later that evening, alone in his penthouse, Charles found himself staring at the same notebook. Samuel had shyly given it to him, Alina's project. Inside were designs for a renewable energy prototype, simple yet groundbreaking. Pages filled with brilliant society had overlooked because they had come from the wrong place, the wrong hands. Charles felt the sting of truth. He had lost everything chasing power in boardrooms, yet salvation was scribbled in the handwriting of a young black girl no one noticed. but the world wasn't ready to let him rise again. His rivals were already plotting to bury him, and now his decision would determine everything: ignore the notebook and fade into ruin, or trust the wisdom of someone society had silenced. The boardroom was suffocating. Charles had called an emergency presentation, his last chance to salvage what remained of his shattered empire. Around the table sat men and women who had mocked him in whispers, eager to see him fail publicly. They smirked as he placed a worn notebook on the table. "This," he began, "is the future." Laughter erupted. "A billionaire reduced to children's scribbles?" They leaned back, savoring the spectacle. One executive sneered, "A janitor's daughter! Is this what Whitmore Industries has fallen to?" The words cut deeper than knives. It wasn't just mockery, it was racism, naked and cruel. Alina's work was dismissed, not because of its flaws, but because of who she was. Charles's hands trembled, but his voice grew sharper. He unveiled her prototype, an energy model so efficient, so revolutionary, it silenced the room. Charts, projections, and potential worth billions. The executive's smiles vanished. And then, the test. Alina herself, standing nervously at the edge of the room, was invited to explain. She spoke with clarity that left even the harshest skeptics speechless. A janitor's daughter, dismissed moments ago, now held the room in awe. But not all were impressed. A rival billionaire slammed the table, his voice dripping with venom. "This is charity, Whitmore. Desperation. You think we'll hand back your throne because of a child?" Silence followed. The room leaned forward. Charles locked eyes with them, his voice steady. "Not charity, truth. And truth doesn't need your permission." For the first time in months, the power shifted. Not because of wealth, not because of fear, but because of a girl who dared to be heard. Dear audience, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. What began as a mockery became the foundation of a new empire. Investors who once turned their backs now lined up, desperate to buy into the innovation Alina had created. What they had dismissed as child's scribbles became the blueprint for the future of clean energy. Charles rebuilt, not as the same man, but as someone humbled by failure and awakened to the voices society tried to silence. The janitor's daughter, once invisible, now stood at the center of headlines. Teen innovator partners with former billionaire to revolutionize energy. But this wasn't just a victory for Charles. It was a reminder that wisdom, talent, and greatness don't wear the labels society assigns. Racism, class, prejudice, they all blind us to the brilliance in front of us. And too often, the world only listens when power amplifies a silenced voice. For Samuel, it was the quiet pride of watching his daughter break chains he could never escape. For Charles, it was redemption, not in the wealth he regained, but in finally recognizing where true power lies. And for the world, it was a lesson written in bold letters. Greatness can rise from anywhere, and often from those least expected. So next time you look down on someone, ask yourself, what genius, what secret, what future might you be ignoring? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.